I'm Rebecca. I'm a clerk at the Patterson Library in Westfield. You're probably wondering why I'm giving a talk on anime conventions. So I have actually been to, I don't know how many conventions, too many. Not too many to count, I'm just too lazy to count. I've been going to conventions since high school. I average 1 or 2 a year. I've been to small local cons, I've been to massive cons. My favorite is Anime NYC, which takes place in New York City. Best con ever. So what are anime conventions? Well, anime conventions are sort of like under the umbrella term of sort of like nerdy conventions. Conventions are just sort of places where nerds meet up and hang out, but it's more official than that. Usually they're run by an organization or a group, and they will rent out a convention space, usually in a hotel or an official convention center. And they will have all these cool things to do, like informational panels, massive events, which I will go over later, guests, all the people, con-goers we call them. Con-goers are basically people who pay to go to the convention. They aren't paid to go, you pay them. And so we would basically be con-goers. So if you hear that term used throughout the presentation, let's talk about us. Okay, so these are sort of general what we're going over. Okay, first thing you need to go to a convention is a ticket. You can't get in for free. I mean, there's some small conventions that are free. They're nice if they're free, but most you have to pay to go to.
Or you volunteer.
Or you volunteer. Before we move on then, I didn't make a page for this, but it is possible to become a volunteer for a convention. And usually it's something you have to sign up for a while in advance. You can't just show up and say, hey, I'm ready to work. It's not going to work like that. And there usually are age restrictions. Some conventions might let those under 18 do some volunteer work, but most of the time they require 18 and up. So you might not have to worry about that for a while. So first thing you're going to have to do is buy a ticket. This usually costs between, it depends on how big the con is. Smaller cons will be cheaper, bigger cons will be more expensive, and it also depends on how many days you go for. For example, this is Toricon. It takes place in Rochester this coming month. I already bought my ticket, and the ticket for the one day was, I believe, $38 plus tax. Generally, it's a little bit, but this is sort of like a general range. You will usually buy them online. Some conventions will sell them at other conventions, so they'll have like a table at a big con, and you'll be able to sign the ticket. They're not that common. Usually just online or in person the day of. Okay, tickets. They can usually be split into these 2 general categories. Look at these. These are both from Anime NYC, different years. So one is a Saturday, and one is a 3-day ticket. So single day tickets are basically Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. They are cheapest overall, so you pay one cost. That's the cost of the day you go. Weekend tickets are generally more expensive, but overall better deal. So for example, let's say a Saturday ticket costs $30, but a weekend/3-day ticket costs $60. Obviously, better deal per day to buy a weekend ticket. Usually you only want to buy single day tickets if you're going for that one single day. Because I mean, if you're only able to make it Saturday, why would you spend double the money for a weekend ticket you're not going to use? Here is a wide variety of different types of badges. So this is an example from Anime NYC this very year. Happened, well, last year. It happened back in November. I went to it. Very fun. So you see you have the 3-day ticket. So this was the most expensive for the general public. Then you have Saturday 1 day, Sunday 1 day. Accessibility, so most cons, well, all cons will have different forms of accessibility. I believe you usually have to tell them beforehand, say, say, hey, I have this, I need help with, like, if you need a translator or if you need wheelchair access, you can contact and sign up beforehand, and they will add this badge so you can have it too. This is a pro badge. Basically, all of these on the bottom row, you're not going to have to worry about until you're older, because these are sort of the adult things. For example, artists or people who sell in artist alleys, panels if you're running a panel, exhibit hall. Pro, I got this because I work at a library, so got a little bit small benefits, a little bit cheaper. I mean, I was supposed to be at the front of the line, didn't end up working that way, miscommunication error. But you get sort of like benefits, but you have to do special signups for these. So generally, you're going to focus on these. So when you buy a badge online, it's going to be shipped to you most of the time. Some cons, they will have you pick up your badge at the con itself. Usually nowadays what happens is you buy the ticket, they'll say, okay, we sent you an email with like a QR code. You get their day of, and you go to a front desk and you say, hey, I'm here for my ticket. They scan, you get your ticket. I would recommend getting it mailed to you just because sometimes it can be a bit of a hassle getting tickets the day of. So if you can, get it early enough so you get mailed to you. Warning, so some cons, if they're like really big and really popular, they're a bit hard to get tickets to. I believe the most infamous example is San Diego Comic-Con. Do you know San Diego Comic-Con? It's sort of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the pinnacle largest nerd con in the US, maybe the world. And tickets can be terrible to get. I believe, from what I've heard, you usually are like refreshing the front page, refreshing the page, split second, you're waiting in line for hours only to be told you didn't get it. So that's sort of like a worst case scenario for the largest cons. Most cons you can buy tickets for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. You don't really have to worry. But never really assume they're going to have tickets available day of, just because, you know, even small cons can sell out. Especially nowadays, they will have capacity limits. So if you say, oh, it's a small con, it'll be fine, and then you go there, they may have already reached the number of people they can have in that building with different COVID spacing taken into consideration, so always pre-buy. So after you get your ticket, you are going to want to get a hotel. I mean, this is all sort of assuming that you are going to a convention that's a ways away. It is possible you might find a convention that's like half an hour away from home, and then you can just drive out, drive back. So general hotels are for if you're going to be traveling a ways away. For example, I got a hotel in New York City for Anime NYC because, you know, driving 6.5 hours one way in the morning, I'd be there for half an hour and I'd drive back home. It wouldn't work out well. So this is usually expensive. This is what you're going to want to save up your money for because hotels are expensive. Depending on where the convention is, the cost can vary. Usually you're going to, for cities, $150 to $300 a night. So if you're doing a weekend, which is 2 nights, maybe even 3 if it's Thursday to Sunday, expensive. Here's an example of New York City. So I put in the dates for next year's Anime NYC, and here's sort of all the costs associated per night. A lot. It's scary. But if you have friends who are also nerds and want to go to the convention, you can save some money. Word of warning, okay, don't do this. I'm just saying some people do this. They will say, okay, it's a room for 4 people, and they will sneak extra people in, because then you can split the cost more. But that doesn't make beds appear. And it's also illegal, because, you know, fire safety, room safety, especially nowadays, you don't want to do this. Don't do this. We accidentally underestimated the amount of beds. Don't do it. so usually hotels, you can sort of split them into two groups. Conventions will usually have like a list of hotels that they're sort of like partnering with, and you can go straight through the convention. They'll have like a links on their website and say, okay, this hotel, we have like a block I'll set aside for you guys. Pros, they're like right there, you don't have to walk for it, and trust me, after a whole day of walking through a convention, you don't want to walk far to get to your bed. But on the other hand, they are more expensive usually because they're like right in a prime location. You could always go to a hotel that's like not associated with the convention. They're generally cheaper, so you have more money to spend at the con itself. But then vice versa, you have to walk farther. For example, NYC again, really expensive by the convention center, cheaper further away, but you have to walk. I think I had like a 5-10 minute walk, which not the worst, but still not fun in the morning at night. Okay, so you are getting ready to go to convention. It's sort of like packing for a vacation, but more stressful somehow. Don't know how that is. So a little bit confusing, but here's sort of like a general overview of a lot of the big important stuff. First, clothing. A lot of places you have to wear clothing. Those are rules. Make sure you pack enough clothing. You'd be surprised at what people, there's sort of like this sort of general stereotype that if you go to a convention it's going to be very smelly. Some people, to save like baggage space, will like wear the same clothing. Don't do that, it's gross. Hygiene products, similarly. Try and take a shower every day of the con. Some people don't because, they're walking around all day, they get tired, they just want to flop into bed. Don't do that. Your fellow con goers will be not happy with you if you do not shower. Whatever you need to sleep well, if you have a favorite pillow you need, a favorite stuffed animal, whatever it takes to get a good amount of sleep, you're going to want to bring it with you. Because nothing is worse than waking up with like only 5 hours of sleep and having to go to a convention. Not fun. Money, bring money, otherwise you can't do a lot of things at a convention. It is an expensive trip. Food and water, you need these to survive. So don't forget these. These are sort of connected, your phone, charging cords. I think my phone died once at Anime Boston. Terrible experience because you're in a city you don't live in, and suddenly you have no way of contacting your friends and family. Not fun. So make sure you have your phone all charged, and I would strongly recommend bringing a portable phone battery and a cord to charge your phone. It's good as a backup.
And conventions generally do have food, but they sell it for a lot of money.
Yeah, it's one of the later ones. There, as a general, I'll tell you a bit about them.
Are you allowed to take your own food and water, or is that
usually? Yeah. Like for example, I usually bring stuff like granola bars or bottled water. I've never personally, tried to bring in a giant bowl of soup. I don't know how that would work, but generally, as long as it's like, prepackaged or like packaged safely, it should be all good.
Okay.
Bring a bag to carry stuff, so your wallet, your phone, have a nice bag to put it in. I personally, from experience, bring an extra tote bag, little canvas bag, because if you're going to be buying stuff, nothing is worse than buying something cool and you realize there's no room in your bag, so you have to lug it around.
Right.
Because then you might lose it and not fun. So I usually recommend getting like a little mini canvas bag, rolling it up and shoving it at the bottom of your main bag. And then convention guidebooks. So these you actually don't have to pack, but they will be handed out to you. You guys can look through them if you want. So these basically have all the information you need about a convention. They'll have maps, they'll have schedules, lists of the vendors in the artist alley, sort of like your Holy Bible, like a holy guidebook to the whole convention.
They also generally have these available, like have information about the different stuff going on online, and I like printing out this and highlighting the stuff that I'm interested in. Otherwise you can get there and be overwhelmed by all of the options.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, usually cons will, I know some cons aren't as good at this as they should be. Usually they will have at least a couple of weeks, I believe, before convention, they will have most everything listed online. For example, again, Handman NYC, keep going back to it. I went through and using their app, went through all of the artists, went to their websites, looked for stuff I might want to buy, and I made a list of specific things that I wanted to buy. So, yep.
Would you recommend going with people?
Going
With people or just alone?
it's sort of up to you, because there are different experiences. Because when you go with other people, you know, you get those fun experiences of like, oh, look at this, or like, oh, you should totally buy it, or, you know, sitting through panels and being able to talk with each other. But on the other hand, you might get stuck with them. And so, for example, say you have even some small, like, different walking speeds. For example, if, like, you know, you walk fast, your friend walks slow, you're like walking through, pushing through people, you suddenly look behind you and realize your friend is nowhere to be seen.
Right.
And that can cause the stress or even anger, you know, if you're like, oh, I want to go do this, and you're waiting around for them to catch up, or say they want to go to a certain panel, you don't, then you sort of have to do this mental equation of just like, do I care enough to sit through this panel I don't want to listen to? Or should I abandon them?
yeah, I do recommend going with groups at first. And then also some of that stuff can be cleared up with communication, like, hey, I want to go to this panel, so if you go to this panel at the same time, we'll meet up here.
And that's also why you want your phone charged at all times, because it's good to keep in communication.
What does room clear mean?
So room clearing is just between panels, because you know they're pushing all these people in, and in order to get them all out and make the room nice and clean for the next panelists,
So
they will just have a limit time. Because you know otherwise they'd be like, okay, the panel's supposed to start now, but there's still like 50 people in the room, you have to kick them out.
Right.
It's sort of like a nice buffer zone between panels. Okay, so packing lists. I was gonna make like a list of stuff to pack, but frankly there is so much, and it's so dependent on just like you, what you want, that I personally would just recommend searching up on Google like convention packing list, just going through and going like, yeah, I want that, or yes, that'd be useful. For example, I don't need a mirror, I don't do makeup, so I mean it's nice to look at myself, but I don't really need it. So it sort of would just be something that I'd recommend each con you just go through, make your own personalized list. Transportation. So from experience, you guys won't really have to worry about this right now, because you can like, hey parents, caretakers, can I please go to this con? Okay, we're gonna drive there. Driving the good old standby. Pros, you can go straight to your hotel or the convention. Relatively cheap compared to the others, and you can go with your friends or family, so you can pile everyone into the minivan, save a lot of money overall. The cons, you have to drive, although your parents have to drive, so they might not be happy, so it's sort of, you're relying on them being willing.
Right.
And my poor parents, I got them to drive into Boston for me 1 year for a convention. Never again, they told me, because apparently Boston people don't know how to drive or something like that, which is ironic. My sister lives there now. Don't know how her driving skills have been affected. Trains. They're pros, they're fancy. I've been on a train down to New York City. You get over it quick. It's not the most comfortable. It's pretty expensive. It's sort of limited to what cities the train goes to, which aren't a lot. And you also need to get from your station to your hotel, which depending on the city could be easy, could be hard. I think New York City, the train station was like a 10-15 minute walk from our hotel, which we arrived late at night, wasn't fun, but it was doable. Some other cities might be, more spread out, and you would be walking for an hour, 2 hours from the train.
It's definitely something you want to look at beforehand. Also times.
Yeah, trains surprisingly not that fast. They're about the same as like a car or a bus. Sometimes even slower somehow. Don't know how. because they don't go straight to the side facing around. Yeah, so, but it's an option, so you should always look at all your options, because who knows, it may be a surprise a perfect fit. Buses, they're sort of similar to cars in that, you know, they sort of can go straight from point A to point B, but it is still a little bit dependent on location, because, you know, a bus to middle of nowhere,
Right.
a lot fewer options than to like New York City. So timing and budget, everything can be weird. But you can like fall asleep on the bus, and you don't have to drive or worry, so you can just like conk out. Oh, I'm here.
So this is, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt again.
Okay.
This is another reason why I recommend going with a group first, because if you, like, all of this can sometimes be overwhelming. So if you have multiple people like trying to figure it out, then it's easier to get it right. And sometimes you're just gonna run into like snags. And
Yep.
so having multiple people there with you to problem solve is also really helpful.
Yeah, something always goes wrong, and you sort of have to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
So that something always goes wrong. There's never a perfect convention. I mean, you could probably pay thousands of dollars to get like the perfect convention experience, like hotel right in the con, like most professional. Some large conventions will sell like really expensive tickets for like if you have the money to like shell out, and you go like, oh yeah, first in, gets tons of cool merch and everything.
But it's kind of like Disneyland, right?
Yeah, it's
Just
like
gotta go with some patience.
yeah, no, like a lot of these things are like applicable sort of to Disney too. You know, the whole hotel more expensive right there versus off.
I've never been to Disney.
Never been there.
Okay,
either.
gotcha. Well, like any major travel trip.
I know.
Yeah.
Airplane. Pros really fast. For example, getting to New York City, I think by train, I'm really blanking now. I think it was like 8 hours or something. Plane 1.5.
Oh.
Really nice. Expensive, very expensive. Limited to cities with airports.
Right.
And then also you need to get from the airport to your hotel, which, I mean, you could technically, you know, like pay a taxi, but it sort of then again adds cost to an already expensive form of transportation. And then also you're paying per person, so it's not a good group option. So sort of just like a general example budget. There's a lot more that can go into this. This is about as bare bones as I could get. Tickets, $35 to $65. Hotel, let's say you're doing a weekend, average $400.
For 2 nights.
Yeah, for 2 nights. But I mean, if you're, for example, a lot of hotels would be like 2 queens. So if you're okay with just sleeping in the same bed as a friend, you can automatically split that into 4. So they're $100. So, you know, it's not the worst cost overall as long as you manage to go with friends. If you're going alone, it's sort of painful because now you are the only one paying for that $400.
Yeah.
Food, again, it's sort of dependent on how much you're willing to pay. One of the later slides covers the food differences. If you can get complimentary hotel breakfast and you're okay with eating the complimentary hotel breakfast, then you know that saves money. The cost of like, you know, packing snacks and drinks. I'll talk about the food later a bit because it can get weird.
Okay.
Merchandise. So this is basically what you would buy at the vendor hall or artist alley.
Yeah.
When I first started going to cons, I would admittedly go a little bit crazy. Because, you know, I was young, I didn't have like bills to pay or anything. I was like, oh yeah, all the money I've saved up, $500, $400, you know, like. But I would recommend you figuring out what a good safe budget is, because it's very easy to go overboard.
On the other hand, going and being like, I just want to go for the experience because I have no money to buy merch makes you very sad. When you go to-
Yeah.
So at least give yourself something.
Yeah. Because it's really hard. Or like the pain of like at the end of the con, you're just like, okay, let's see how much I spent, and you add it up. It was like,
Especially because
bad past me.
And anime conventions, especially because it's harder to find anime related merchandise elsewhere. So this is like a big opportunity to
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it used to be worse.
Yeah.
Like even before when I've been reading and manga and watching anime since middle school, so like a decade now. Even before me, apparently the like only way you could get your hands on like anime episodes was like VHS tapes that people would record. So over time, like the quality would go bad, and you just have to go like, hey, do you have this? Okay, let me check on this box of VHS tapes.
Pull it out.
Now
from under the
you,
chair.
back in my day, I had to watch anime episodes on YouTube split into 3 parts Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish, but I had to figure it out. But I mean, but again, even though, you know, like Hot Topic has a bunch of anime merch, you know, even like big names are jumping on the anime hype train, it's still relatively niche-ish. So, you know, it's exciting. You know, you're a nerd, you're like, oh, I'm amongst my people. And you're surrounded by all these things that you love that you can suddenly just get your hands on instead of having to browse and buy online and wait for weeks to show up, you know. It's exciting, but then on the other hand, it's easy to go overboard.
Yeah.
Sort of a balancing act. Transportation costs, again, it's all dependent on what you choose. Ooh, fun. Many large cons have actual apps. The Anime NYC had one. It's what I used to like favorite artists, so you could just like click and put a star next to them.
It's great.
And it's also, I think, it might have been Anime Boston maybe. I'm blanking on which one exactly. They had one where you could select which events you wanted to go to on a calendar, and they would send you messages when it was like 15 minutes before the event.
Oh, that's nice.
Very nice, very nice. Otherwise, you have to, you know, take like the brochure, circle what you want, and then just put manually reminders in.
Right. Or yeah, put him in.
Yeah, 'cause nothing sucks worse
So
than
make
if you're, like,
sure you wear a watch.
Yes.
Yeah, or at the very least, like, you know, have your phone
Yeah.
check, because nothing. It's really sad when you realize, oh wait, I've been having so much fun browsing the stuff in like Artist Alley, and I missed this
Not only
giant
have I
event
spent
wanted to do.
$400, I have missed my favorite panel.
Yep. Okay, it's go time. You're at the con. Woo woo. Okay. First things first. Getting into the con. Wake up nice and early. Some lines to enter cons, especially for the very first day, so like Friday morning, can be painful. For example, I was in the infamous Anime NYC 2021 line. This was, I forget how many streets. I was in it for 2-3 hours, and it was cold. And you're just standing slowly, every once in a while shuffling down. The wind, terrible. But admittedly, most cons are not like this. This was poor
An
planning,
extreme
overwhelmed. This was due to, you know, they weren't fully prepared for the whole COVID situation, and they weren't prepared for this many people to actually show up. So it was nice way. So even for smaller cons, you know, if you want like the full day experience, I would personally recommend waking up nice and early, having your badge nice and ready. If you are picking your badge up at the con, have everything printed out or right on your phone, and just like be prepared to wait a little bit. I think so I've been to every Anime NYC. That's sort of like my little star badge because it's like my favorite one. So the very first year, it was a trip with my undergraduate anime club, and so we took a bus down at like 3 a.m. Like we took like way early. I still have photos somewhere of us like walking in the dark just through town to the bus station. And I believe I brought like my Nintendo DS or something just so I could play it while waiting in line, because some lines can be a bit of a wait.
Smart.
And wear coats, because there were so many poor people who probably thought, oh, I'll just get inside, because you know they have like a nice big waiting area inside. They probably thought, oh, I'll just get inside nice and warm. It wasn't, and so there were people like standing there like this. So be prepared, bring a coat. A lot of Anime NYC, for example, has a coat check. A lot of big cons will have a coat check where you pay like a couple of bucks and they will give you a ticket and they'll hold on to your like bag or coat for you. I would recommend that versus carrying around heavy stuff all day. Just double checking it again. The big three. Money. Because money can technically buy you everything else. Sustenance, even though it's expensive. Electronics, this will basically have all your contact info, your way of keeping contact with friends and family. Do not get left stranded. Worst experience. Ugh, still scarred from Anime Boston. And sustenance. As much as you may want to deny it, you need to drink water and eat food. This is a fact of life. I'm so sorry. And no, it is a problem because, you know, you're like, oh yeah, having so much fun. Oh, I'll grab water after this panel, and suddenly you're super dehydrated. Or you think, oh, I'll be fine without food until I get back to the hotel, and you're like, oh, I'm so hungry. Trust me, from experience, I think I did 1 or 2 cons where I was just like not paying attention to that.
It wipes you out too. Yeah. Makes the rest of the experience.
Because like cons are a long day. Say from like 10 to, depending on, some cons go way late. I think Anime Boston goes into like the AMs.
That's the other thing is, it's a constant temptation to want to do everything, but be okay with going home before the convention ends.
Yeah. Like I enjoyed the panel. It was one of my favorite panels, but like I went to like a Princess Tutu. It's a ballet anime themed panel at like midnight, I think, one Anime Boston, and it was fun. But you know, after it, I was just like sitting there, just like, oh my goodness, my like eyesight is fuzzy. Why am I here?
Yeah.
So like you have to weigh how much is worth it, and then also if you're going to con the next day, you know, you may have something you want to do late at night, Saturday night, but then now you get less sleep for Sunday morning.
Right.
Sort of
You definitely want to time, if you're doing multi-days, like make sure you're timing your energy
that
well.
would be easier.
Yeah.
Okay. Sort of like, back to number 3, things you need to stay aware of. Once again, hydration and food. I sort of like already talked about this, but pay attention. Pay attention to that. Generally, best plan is to pack a water bottle. I mean, in the past, I'd be like, heck yeah, fill water bottle stations. Perfect. With COVID, I admit at Anime NYC 2021, I did use a water fountain once. I was just like, oh, I just need to drink water. Depends on how safe you think it is. The issue is food and water at conventions are very overpriced. So you really want to prepare. It's like a worry though, because you don't want to carry around 3 water bottles just to make sure you have enough throughout the day. But then if you bring one, you're gonna run out, and you don't want to pay like $3 for a water bottle. It's
Sometimes you gotta fork out the cash.
yeah. It's a bit
Do what you
painful.
can.
Pay attention to where your things are. Try not to lose any of your things. It's very packed. It's easy to leave things behind. I'm trying to remember. I think I didn't lose it, but years and years ago, I think I left a bag at like the panel. You know, I sat down, listened to the panel. I had like my main bag, but then my bag of like merch. I think I sat down both. I grabbed my main bag, not my merch bag. Thought I lost it, managed to find it, but you know, it's easy to lose track of things. So just sort of stay aware of where everything is, and you will be good. Finally, are you having fun? Do not force yourself to do things you don't want to do. Like it's not considered super nice, but I have left, I think, 1 or 2 panels early. Because, you know, like, it's sort of sad, because, you know the people running the panel are like, oh, I'm having so much fun, oh, that person's leaving, oh, do they not like it? But at the same time, you know, if you're not having fun, you shouldn't force yourself to sit there. And a lot of times, just sitting down on the floor off to the side in a hallway is perfect. I think when I went to New York Comic-Con in undergrad, I think half of my time was spent sitting on the floor next to a bathroom eating a sandwich, just because I was like overwhelmed with how packed it was. And so, you know, if you need to de-stress, sometimes it's worth it to just sort of sit down.
Yeah.
Relax. Sit down, drink, eat. We're gonna eat. Ooh, on the topic of food costs. So
This is pretty self-explanatory.
yeah, convention centers are infamous for raising the prices of food and water. Think like Disney level costs of food. You're gonna be paying like $12-15 for 3 chicken strips. Like, it's bad. On the other hand, you can go outside of the con, so you could just leave the con, go eating.
Because your badge will get you back in.
Yeah, so Anime NYC, I usually either eaten food that I packed or I've gone off, because Anime New York City has a lot of food places. Not so much around the Javits Center where it is, but there's options. Anime Boston, on the other hand, I remember the lines to get back in are usually a little bit worse. So Boston, I've more so stayed in the convention center. You have to sort of like figure out how long it's going to be to get back in. So you're going to want to be a well-planned congoer. You're going to want to figure out what you want to do. You're going to want to have everything prepaid for. So you get to the hotel, say, hey, my name is this. This is my purchase of your hotel room. Okay, perfect. Here's your card key. You go up, perfect. So you know what you're doing, you're enjoying the con 100%. No worries, you're perfect. You don't want to be like her. She didn't plan on a budget, so she blew through all her money the first day, and now it's like Saturday, and she realizes, oh, I want to buy this cool thing I see. Nope, you have no money. So, speaking of money, these are sort of like the two big money sinks. These are what are going to steal your money from your wallet. So vendor halls are basically where like all the big name companies go, big brands. So for example, Crunchyroll, they're like the Netflix of anime, I guess you could say. They have a lot of booths. Translators, they might have booths, etc. So this is where you're going to basically get stuff that you could buy online easily. So stuff you could search up by anime plush toys, and they pop up. Versus artist alleys, which are where smaller artists will set up. Some artists, if they're like famous enough, they may be able to get into a vendor hall. Most of the time, artists are going to be in artist alleys. A lot of the merch will be, for example, like posters, small acrylic keychains. Let's see, posters. Like I got this at an artist alley, I believe.
Oh,
This one, yeah.
Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer, yeah, Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
So I got this for the library for us to pen display. It's a Shayla Torres. Yeah. So I got this little poster. Poster is usually like $10 to $15, $10 to $20, depending on the size. Or, for example, I got this at Artist Alley. I think it was, I forget what. Oh, there it goes. There goes James. So I think this was like $50 or something, which I mean, when you realize that an acrylic keychain for, no, it was super expensive. When you realize like an acrylic keychain of like this size would be like $10, $12, not a bad deal. But again, money sink, because boom, there goes like $50 in one purchase. And you can get free stuff. For example, I got this for free. They were, let's see, what was it? What are they called? Mochi Bee plush. So they were having a special event where you could go to their like mini stall, get like a ticket, and you would pull to see what you won. And I won this little thing. But I'm pretty sure they were also selling this for like $30 or something. So free thing right away. And yeah, so interestingly enough, early on, I think most of my money would go to merch halls, but now I mostly spend money at Artist Alley. Because Artist Alleys are, smaller artists where if you didn't follow them on social media, you might not find their stuff.
Yeah.
And so it sort of feels like exclusive almost in a way, because you're just like, hey, this thing that I'm probably never really going to see again unless I look for it.
Yeah, are artist alleys usually less than merch halls?
Cost?
Yes.
I would say yes in general. Because I'm trying to think what the most expensive an artist might sell. Because usually, they have like acrylic keychains for like $10, $12, little pins for a couple bucks, posters for like $10 to $20. Meanwhile, in vendor hall, you could easily find a like $300 figure. So I would say if you're trying to save money, I would personally recommend going to artist alleys. Because then also, it's fun to just sort of see the different art styles and just sort of and you can be surprised by some fun things.
And you're supporting.
Yeah, and you're supporting small artists. Because, I have a couple of artist friends, it can be hard to make money off of art unless you're like, making stuff for multimillionaires. So this is sort of a way a lot of artists can sort of make a living. And so they usually will pay for a table, so you pay the convention some money to set up a booth, so they're basically trying to make the money back.
Also, didn't you commission, like, get a custom commission?
Oh yeah. So a lot of times if you're interested, if you find an artist you really like, I'd say maybe like 5-10% of booths they will do custom commissions. Most of the time right then in their sketches. So for example, I got a really cutesy anime style commission of Nancy, my coworker from upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought she showed interest when we were like cleaning out the Y section. She was interested in the manga, so I was like, okay, she may like this, and so I got a commission of her like in a really cutesy anime style. But yeah, so I enjoy getting commissions. I have a bunch of commissions just in frames around my apartment. So yeah, that's something I would personally really recommend. But yeah, so Artist Alley, the items are generally cheaper.
How many like cons are there a year?
Oh, there are.
Like, would you say a lot or not many?
I mean, I don't know about worldwide, and I've usually only paid attention to New York State ones. Ballparking, I would say maybe New York State gets a couple of dozen a year, because the issue is there's also a lot of small conventions.
Right.
For example, even some libraries will run conventions, like single or weekend conventions.
Right.
Big ones though, I would say ones that get like tens of thousands of people, probably only a couple dozen a year in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also-
like Anime Boston, Anime NYC. Katsucon happened this past week.
Depends too on whether you're looking at anime only or just wider conventions. So like there are just conventions that are just generally anything in geek fandom stuff. So, but they'll like maybe pick a yearly theme or something. So if you're expanding to that, then you also have a lot more options.
Yeah, admittedly, most of my experience comes from anime conventions. I think I think I went to a small general geek one in like Binghamton years ago, and New York Comic Con. I think those are basically the two that I've been to that haven't been anime specific.
See, and I've never been to an anime specific one. I went to one in Salt Lake City, and it was really cool because like there was one that had people from The Hobbit, and I like got to hear one of them sing like a song from Lord of the Rings on stage, and that was really cool. And then there was like actors from Doctor Who at a different panel, and so so broader conventions.
Broader, I have no idea. I could not begin to guess how many. A lot.
There's a lot if you
It
look
depends
for
on
them.
what size you're going for. If you're only going for like the massive ones, then it's going to be fewer. Versus if you're just like, okay, this local college is going to be running a single day convention. Yeah, there's tons of those. Like there's the Rochester one I'm going to be going to in a month. It's a single day. It's a smaller convention. So there's tons of those as well.
Any other questions?
Okay, so quick little note. So Artist Alley prices are what they are. So usually if you find an artist you like and say, okay, here's my Etsy or whatever, then it's basically going to be the same price when you go there. A lot of times there might even be special deals. So I know a common special deal is like buy two, get the third, free or half off or something. And these deals actually increase on Sunday, which I think I can go over later. I'll mention it later if I don't. But so basically, you pay the cost, you might even get special deals. It is what it is. Vendor hall. I'm sorry, I love vendors. They do a wonderful job giving us access to things, but at the same time, a lot of the time you can get it cheaper online. It's mainly you are paying for the convenience, because you can find it cheaper online, but it may be like used, or you have to wait a couple of weeks for it to be shipped all the way over
Or
to
it's
you.
hard to find, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times, sorry, that's fine. But yeah, so like I don't know the exact numbers. I'm just gonna do an estimate of like for example, maybe a $15 prize figurine, maybe they're charging like $25 or something at the convention. It's more expensive. So, you know, depends on if you're willing to pay the extra. Ooh, major events, things you can do. Masquerade. So masquerades, not the type of like masquerade ball, which actually is a thing some cons do. You might even be able to like dress up in fancy outfits and do like ballroom dancing. I forget. One did it, but I didn't go to it. I forget which one. So masquerade is actually more so like, I'm gonna describe it. It's like almost like a talent show partially.
I've never seen one. So.
Yeah. Ooh, it's like my favorite part. They tend to be one of the largest events at cons. So they can sort of be split into two categories. There will be walk-ons. So basically walk-ons are for those who want to be judged on their cosplay, so their costume construction, which I go over a little bit later. And so they'll like have like maybe like 15 seconds. They'll do like pose, walk to the center, pose, walk a little bit more, pose, I don't know, and then they walk off. And so that's sort of the film section. There is then skits. So these are sort of, well, they can technically be anything age appropriate. A lot of times they're like idol groups or like dances, etc. I was in one, which I actually have a little task, which is an experience. I can talk about it after. But yeah, so masquerades are sort of like fun for, it can still also be about your costumes. Like just because you're in a skit doesn't mean you have bad costumes.
Right.
It just means that that's sort of not the main focus that you're going on. You're more so going on the performance aspect of it. Ooh, third thing, AMV contest. So AMV stands for Animated Music Video, and it's essentially creators will take like clips from different anime, and I forget the terminology, but there's like a version for cartoons or like live action.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those on like My Hero Academia and stuff.
I know, I'm pretty sure they're pretty popular on TikTok too, just because, you know, short little videos.
Yeah.
So these are actually full contests. Trying to think. They're usually about like 2 minutes or so, because they're like the length of the song. And they will be in different categories. And I know Anime Boston has a big AMV contest. Usually they run at least once, I think twice each day. You basically go to like this big, massive room with like a bunch of screens at the front, and they hand you a piece of paper, and it has all the different finalists for each category, and you sit through and for like a couple of hours, an hour, 2 hours, you sit there, watch each other, and check mark which one was your favorite. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's fun. It's fun. I had a lot of fun with those. And then they usually show the winner at the end of the convention. I think Anime NYC, I think it was, you just went to a room and they showed it. I forget if anything happened before it. I believe other ones, they might show it during halftime of the Masquerade. So Masquerade, you know, they do the walk-ons and performances, and then the judges go off and deliberate. And so I think sometimes they show the winners then. Depends. Screenings. So some conventions will actually do special screenings. For example, the Anime NYC, they showed Belle. It was like a couple of months before it was released in theaters. It was, you entered a raffle to get chosen to be able to get tickets. I actually got tickets and then decided that no, I should be a good professional and go to a panel that was on libraries instead. And so I missed out on it. Or it might have been the swap meet, but basically I ended up not going. So. And they also live streamed the, I think it was the 1,000th One Piece episode, and you got like a special little coin if you went to it. Yeah, so this is generally larger conventions. Smaller cons, they may do this thing where they get special screening rights from different distributors, like Funimation, Crunchyroll, etc. And so they may have like viewings of stuff, but big special like first time ever screenings are generally for the largest things. Ooh, also for large cons or concerts, I forget, I think it was called Anime Matsuri, which was something Anime NYC did a couple of years ago, where they actually had singers from Japan. They flew in and they did this whole like giant concert. It's generally, again, for larger conventions and also not really happening now as much, just due to, spacing. Yeah. And also, hard getting people over here. Guest signings. So, say you have like a voice actor, so basically people who do the voices for animated characters, yeah. So, a lot of times those will be guests at conventions. They may have like artists, etc. And this is sort of fun because generally cons have them, no matter the size. Smaller cons will usually get, like one or two, and smaller, less well-known, popular, etc. Guest speakers, large cons, they can afford to pay to have a lot of big names come in. I think Toricon, the one in Rochester, is getting people from like Genshin Impact, like 3 Minutes Later, etc. So, yeah. So it's sort of, if you're a super fan of a specific creator, you probably could go like, okay, I want to go to this con just for this person. Otherwise, you can just be like, oh, cool, they're going here. I feel bad, I've never done like a guest signing or anything. A bit smaller, but swap meets are common. So it's basically if you have a bunch of nerdy stuff you no longer want, you can go to a room like at the end of the con, do trades. Usually it's supposed to be trades. Some people do like, oh, secretly I'll pay you. You're not supposed to usually, but yeah, so this is a good way to get rid of stuff you no longer want. Panels. So panels is sort of like a vague umbrella term, almost in a way, because panels can cover a lot of different stuff. Here, let's see. Sorry,
I think like an in-person podcast almost.
Yeah. But like at the same time, there's different formats.
Yeah.
So I know these used to be more popular, but there was a format where like people dressed up as characters would pretend to be those characters while doing like Q&As, etc. I don't think they're popular anymore. Let's see. Panels like industries, like Funimation, they might go like, or Young Press, who published Some Spider, they might do a panel where they say, okay, here for the next year, here's what we're going to be publishing. It's sort of like very wide on what they can cover. Or like, let's see. So intro to pattern making, leatherworking, JoJo posing. So JoJo's an anime where they have like really interesting weird poses. So like, it's literally just a panel of class about how to do like cool poses. So, very interesting way you can, a lot of weird topics you can get into. Okay, so general, just when you're planning, so say it's the end of the day, would strongly recommend you travel to and from the con with friends. A lot of cons, especially ones in the city, it might be a little bit scary or dangerous, etc., to walk at night back to your hotel. So I strongly recommend going with friends. Don't be risky. Alright, cosplay. I think this is the final section. So cosplay is the practice of dressing up as a character. Have either of you cosplayed before?
I know what it is.
You know what it is? I forgot what my first cosplay was. But
One convention I went with my younger brother and I went as Carmen Sandiego.
I love that
And-
show. Sorry.
Yes. It was before the show came out, so
Oh.
it was based off the old Carmen Sandiego, but I love that show. And then my brother went as Waldo. And then he dropped little scrolls everywhere, all over the convention. And we also counted how many times people pointed at him and said, "Found him!" And it was like over 100.
oh wow.
Cosplay is fun.
And like, you don't even have to cosplay at cons. I think my first cosplay was like Zelda during Halloween.
Oh.
Like it's just something you can do, especially Halloween's a popular time also outside of cons for people to cosplay. You don't get weird looks. So, note though, if you are going to be cosplaying, there are rules associated. You guys don't really have to worry about this. People don't have to worry about this, so I'm trying to think. I think there might be rules listed in here as well. But generally, if you click like the cons again. Yeah, so like this is just for a con, so this is a smaller con. Big cons might have even more. But, generally don't bring like realistic looking fake weaponry or make sure you are covered and don't bring stuff that could actually hurt people. you know, it's sort of like
Common sense.
common sense rules, yeah. This is a little bit sad, but so generally cosplay, you just want to have fun, unless you're entering the cosplay contest, then it gets a little bit serious. So cosplay contests, I mentioned before, the sets are part of the masquerade. Usually they're sort of combined in a way. Sometimes they may just have the cosplay contest and the masquerade, dependent. So cosplay contests are major events. Usually what's going to happen, so for example, Anime NYC, you sign up for like different categories. So you could be a beginner, like middle, or like expert, depending on how many convention contests you've won before. And generally they would say, okay, you're signed up at this time of this day, come to this room, and then you basically walk in, there's a bunch of judges, and they go, okay, turn your sleeve inside out, let's look at the stitches. Or, oh, how did you make that? Oh, you hand embroidered that for 200 hours, noted, you know. It's sort of, this is when it gets serious. So at this point, most cosplay contests will have rules like, oh, this percentage of the costume has to be made by you. So you can't go out buy a costume and enter the contest. But you could buy a wig, style it yourself, etc. But yeah. So this is when it gets serious, so sort of rules on that. But if you just want to wear a costume, you can feel free to just buy one online. From experience, you always spend more than you anticipate when you're making your own. So it's nice to just have, okay, this is the cost, I'm going to buy it, boom, done. Yeah. But in the end, you can cosplay whatever you want. If it makes you happy, wear it. And as long as it's within the rules. I know, it's nice of you. Yeah. Yeah, so see, he had fun. He didn't have to be like 7, I don't know how tall they are.
How
7
old
feet
do you
tall.
have to be? Now that I'm looking at that
This is-
child, how old do you have to be to go there?
Oh, to go to cons or?
Yeah,
I mean,
any age.
yeah, people bring their kids all the time. Like they bring babies, really cute baby costumes.
Aww.
Really cute baby costumes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no age limit. And this is just credits because I used a fancy PowerPoint layout. Oh, right on the money. Unless you guys have any questions.
We're staying here because my parents are on a walk, so
Okay.
they'll probably be late.
Okay.
Yeah. So what? Didn't you say earlier that you did a thing at the convention? Let me see. What was it called? Like a cosplay convention or something?
Masquerade.
Yeah,
yes.
Masquerade.
Okay, what year was it? Oh, what year was it? 2018. Okay, so I was in with my undergraduate anime club, the Masquerade. So we did a skit. It was just sort of like a bonding experience because we thought, it'd be fun. We usually would hang out like twice a week for hours anyway. So we're just like, yeah, let's do something fun. It's sort of like a mixture of I believe the anime club, which I was the president of for 2 years. So it was a mixture of that and the cosplay club, which I think was newer, like rebuilding. So we did a skit. We were in the skit based off of Broadway. It's called like Boku no Broadway. And so we just did like anime crossover with Broadway. It was fun. But yeah, so we had to carry a giant cardboard ship all the way onto like the bus, put it under the bus, carry it through the city. It was interesting. But it was fun because we actually had to get into the building like a couple hours early for practice. And so, we were like literally walking through this almost empty convention center, giant convention center. It was fun. Stressful, tiring, but fun.
That's fun. Yeah.
How'd you get the spider cut out?
Ooh. So this I actually just asked about. So years ago, I actually got another one of these for a different series, also by Young Press. It was a bride
I
story.
got reincarnated as a slime.
No, the one so this one's Sewing Spider So What? The other one I got years ago was a bride story by Kawamori, and that one I also had to carry through the city, put on the bottom of the bus, and bring it back up. It's actually in my undergraduate anime club's storage closet now. They bring it out for special events. That's just like advertising. So this actually just went asked because I got it last times. So I was like, okay, let's just ask. And yeah. It's a good series. I own the first volume. I've seen the TV show based off of it. Yeah.
So do most animes get based off of the manga?
Oh,
Or
so
is it the other way around?
it's weird. So
I'm very confused.
So generally, if they aren't based off of anything, anime is just called like an anime original. Otherwise, if it's based off of a manga or light novels are just prose. I think I'm not sure off the top of my head because I don't really read light novels. I don't know why they're called light. I think it's because they generally have like a easier reading level or something, or they're like not as thick or something. That's a common way anime are made, so they'll be based off of light novels. There's a little bit of a running gag that light novels have really long titles, but apparently the reason why is because these websites that sell light novels, so you can buy them online, it's like PDF format or something, they realized that people browsing wouldn't actually click on the titles to see the synopsis. They would just like read the title. And so there's these like really long like sentence, like massive titles of like novels.
Yeah.
And that's just because, you know, the author's writing and they're just like, okay, well they're never gonna read the synopsis, so let's have the title say everything. Yeah, so
Alright.
yeah, so light novels and manga are a common way anime's made nowadays. Sometimes it goes the opposite. Sometimes it's an anime that turns into a manga, but not as common usually. I think Princess Tutu is one.
Well, thank you. I think we're gonna leave now because I want to look
Thank you guys.
Although I